Hey, you men who think you're fine, but when night comes you can't sleep. Trevor Phillips here. Yeah, it's me. Don't adjust your screen. Don't clutch your pearls. Don't write your little comments yet. Save your fingers for something useful like paying your bills or wiping the sweat off your forehead when you realize nobody's coming to rescue you. I'm driving. Same old road, same old lights. Same old idiots merging like the universe owes them a lane. And that's perfect. Because tonight, I want to talk to you about something you keep swallowing, like cheap beer. Why good men lose. Not lose like a video game. Not lose like you get a sad song and a motivational quote, and then you bounce back with a new haircut. I mean, lose like you wake up at 40 and your chest feels heavy for no reason. Lose like your friends don't call anymore because you become intense. Lose like you stare at the ceiling thinking, I did everything right, so why does it feel like I'm drowning? Let's start with money. Because money is the first God you ever meet. Your parents might have taken you to church, sure. But the real sermons? They were in the kitchen whispered arguments, the clink of coins, the tension behind every, we're fine. You grew up thinking money is safety. Then you grew up a little more and realized money is power. Then you grew up even more and realized money is a mirror. Here's the part you don't want to hear. Money doesn't make you cruel. Money makes you honest. Give a man enough money and you don't see success. You see what he always was. If he was generous, he becomes generous loudly. If he was petty, he becomes petty with receipts. If he was empty, he becomes empty in a bigger house. And you, the good guy, you thought money was gonna reward you for being decent. Like the universe hands out paychecks for politeness. That's not how it works. The universe doesn't do payroll. You know what money rewards? Clarity. Brutal clarity. The guy who knows what he wants, no matter how ugly it is, he moves like a bullet. The good man who's always unsure, always trying to be fair, always waiting to be chosen, he moves like fog. And fog doesn't win races. Fog just hangs around until the sun burns it off. I've met 1,000 men like you. Good men. Soft eyes. Heavy conscience. You're the kind that returns the shopping cart. The kind that tips even when the service is trash. The kind that thinks being harmless is the same as being honorable. And that's where it starts. Because the world doesn't respect harmless. The world respects contained danger. A good man with no edge is just a volunteer. A charity worker. A tool for everyone else's needs. People pat you on the head and say, he's such a good guy. The same way they talk about a dog that doesn't bite. But here's the twist, good men don't lose because they're good. They lose because they confuse goodness with submission. You ever notice how the worst people always seem calm? Like they're playing on easy mode? That's because they don't carry guilt like a backpack full of bricks. You do. You apologize when someone bumps into you. You explain yourself when you don't owe an explanation. You try to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And then you call it being mature. No, that's being trained. Let's talk about trust. Trust is a beautiful word that gets used like a weapon. People say, trust me, the way gamblers say, one more hand. It's never about trust. It's about control. Trust, real trust, isn't blind. Blind trust is what children do with parents. And even then it goes wrong sometimes. Adult trust is a contract. A living contract. It says, I'm watching you, and I'm choosing you anyway, for now. That, for now, is important. Because here's what happens to good men. They treat trust like a sacred vow. Like once you give it, you're not allowed to take it back without becoming toxic or insecure. So you keep trusting. You keep giving. You keep forgiving. You keep turning the other cheek until your face is just one big bruise and you're calling it love. Let me tell you a secret nobody puts on a poster. Some people don't want your trust. They want your permission. Permission to waste your time. Permission to use your loyalty. Permission to treat your boundaries like a joke and then act shocked when you finally snap. And when you do snap, they look at you like you became the monster. That's the oldest trick in the book. I've done it. I'm not proud, but I'm honest. You push a man, Push a man. Push a man, then when he swings back, you point and say, "See? He was crazy all along." Good men fall for that because they're addicted to being seen as good. Listen to me. If your identity depends on being viewed as good, you're not good. You're performing. You're begging for a stamp on your forehead that says approved, not a threat. And the world loves men who aren't threats. The world feeds on them. Now, marriage. 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 The great social experiment, where two people promise to stop being strangers and then slowly become roommates who share trauma and a Netflix password. Don't get all defensive. I'm not saying love is dead. I'm saying the dream you were sold is dead. The dream where you find the one, and then life becomes a stable little sitcom with predictable problems and a laugh track. Real marriage, real long-term love is not a romance. It's a war of erosion, not bullets and explosions. Little things, quiet things. One person stops trying, the other pretends not to notice. Then both pretend not to notice. Then you wake up next to someone and realize you haven't felt seen in years. And the good man? He says, "I'll fix it." He works harder. He becomes more responsible. He pays more bills. He listens more. He swallows his anger. He reads relationship books like Holy Scripture. And he loses anyway. Why? Because love doesn't reward effort. Love rewards truth. If you can't tell the truth, if you can't say, "This hurts, this is unacceptable, I'm leaving if it continues," then you're not building love. You're building a cage with soft padding. You're trying to be the perfect husband, the perfect partner, the perfect provider, and you're terrified of the one sentence that could save you: no. No is a holy word. No is the boundary that turns a man from furniture into a person. But you hate saying no because you think no makes you selfish. You think no makes you cruel. You think no makes you your father or your enemy or some villain you promised you'd never be. So you say yes, and yes becomes your coffin. Look, keep your eyes on the road, Trevor. I am. I'm just saying, I see you, man. I see you at the red light in your own life. Engine running, hands on the wheel, pretending you know where you're going, when really you're just hoping the next green light will tell you what to do. That's not how it works. The road doesn't care if you're good. The road cares if you can drive. And driving means choosing a direction, even if it costs you people. We're not even at the worst part yet, because the worst part is what happens when a good man gets cornered. And trust me, every man gets cornered eventually. You want to know what a corner feels like? It's not a dramatic moment with thunder in slow motion. It's not some movie scene where you scream in the rain and suddenly everything becomes clear. A corner is quiet. A corner is when you sit in your car after work and you don't turn the engine off. Not because you're checking your phone, not because you're listening to music, but because the idea of walking through that front door feels like stepping into a room where you're already losing. That's a corner. And when men get cornered, they don't become evil out of nowhere. They become honest out of necessity. That's why I'm bringing up war. No, not the kind with medals and flags and speeches. Real war is boring and terrifying at the same time. Real war is mostly waiting for the next hit, the next mistake, the next scream, the next silence that tells you something is wrong. And here's the thing, nobody tells you. War doesn't end when you come home. It just changes uniforms. You think war is over because the shooting stops, because the papers get signed, because the news moves on. But inside a man's head, war is a habit. War teaches your body to stay alert. War teaches your mind to scan for threats. War teaches you that peace is temporary and comfort is suspicious. So when you come home, when you try to live a normal life, your nervous system doesn't get the memo. Your wife asks you, "What's wrong?" And you don't know how to answer. Because what's wrong isn't one thing. What's wrong is that you can't lower your guard without feeling like an idiot. You laugh at a joke, and a part of you is still listening for danger. You go to bed, and your brain plays old scenes like a broken projector. Things you did, things you didn't do, people you couldn't save, words you shouldn't have said. And if you've never been in a battlefield, congratulations, you've still been in a war. A different war. The war of being a man who's expected to provide, protect, perform, stay calm, stay strong, stay useful, while everyone around you gets to fall apart and call it being human. Men don't get that luxury. A man collapses and people don't ask, "Are you okay?" They ask, "What happened to him?" Like you're a machine that stopped working, like you're a tool that broke. So you learn to keep moving, keep smiling, keep pain, keep taking hits. And the good man takes more hits than anyone because he believes pain is proof of virtue. Let me say that again, slow, so it reaches the part of your brain that still thinks suffering makes you noble. Pain doesn't make you good. Pain makes you trained. You ever notice how the most exhausted men are the ones who never say no? The ones who carry everyone else's problems like it's their job? The ones who try to be the bigger person until they're just smaller. That's not goodness, that's conditioning. Somewhere along the line, you learned that your value is measured by how much you can endure without complaining. You learned that anger is dangerous. You learned that boundaries are selfish. You learned that if you make people uncomfortable, you're the problem. So you become polite, predictable, convenient. And then you're shocked when the world treats you like furniture. War turns men into two things, predators or ghosts. The predator learns to take. The ghost learns to disappear. Most good men become ghosts. You stop asking for what you want because you don't want to be a burden. You stop talking about what hurts because you don't want to start a fight. You stop telling the truth because you're terrified of losing the little peace you have. But here's the part that'll sting. The peace you're protecting is already fake. It's a ceasefire, not peace. It's quiet because you're silent. It's stable because you're bending. And bending looks noble until you realize you've been bending for 10 years and you don't recognize your own spine anymore. Now let's talk loyalty. Because loyalty is the word men use when they're afraid of being alone. You tell yourself, "I'm loyal." Sounds strong, right? Sounds like a code. Like honor. Like something you can put on a patch and sew to your chest. But loyalty without standards is just fear wearing a tuxedo. A man who's loyal to people who disrespect him isn't honorable. He's addicted. Addicted to approval. Addicted to the idea that if he just gives enough, stays long enough, forgives enough, somebody will finally look at him and say, "You matter." I hate to break it to you, but nobody hands out that certificate. You have to claim it. And claiming it comes with consequences, because the moment you stop being endlessly available, when you stop being the guy who always says yes, people will accuse you of changing. They'll say, "You're not the man you used to be." As if that's an insult. Listen, the man you used to be was getting used. Of course you changed. That's what happens when you finally see the pattern. That's what happens when your chest gets tired of carrying everyone else. Here's a hard truth for your good man heart. Some people only love you when you're useful. And usefulness is not love. Usefulness is rent. You pay it and they let you stay around. You stop paying and suddenly you're difficult, cold, selfish, not supportive. And you'll feel guilty. Oh, you'll feel guilty like you committed a crime. Because good men think guilt is a compass. They think if they feel guilty, they must be doing something wrong. No. Sometimes guilt is just the alarm system of the old version of you, the version that survived by being agreeable. You're not a bad man for setting boundaries. You're not evil for choosing yourself sometimes. You're not a monster because you finally decided you're not going to die quietly to keep everyone comfortable. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not telling you to become cruel. Cruel men are easy. Cruel men are lazy. Cruel men are just boys who never learn control. I'm telling you to become dangerous in a disciplined way. Dangerous doesn't mean violent. It means you have weight. It means your no is real. It means your presence has consequences. It means people can't just walk over you and call it their personality. A man with no edge gets cornered by life. A man with an edge carves an exit. And the exit always starts with one thing. Truth. Not your nice truth. Not your edited truth. Not the truth you soften so nobody gets upset. The real truth. The truth that might cost you friends. The truth that might cost you comfort. The truth that might cost you a marriage that's been dead for years but still wearing a ring like a costume. The truth that says, I'm not doing this anymore. And yeah, that truth will scare you. Because when war ends, soldiers miss it. Not because they loved it, but because war is familiar. War is predictable. War makes sense. Peace is confusing. Peace means you have to build a life instead of just surviving one. And a lot of men would rather survive than build, because building means responsibility. And responsibility means you can't blame anyone else. So you keep living in your little war. You keep replaying old battles. You keep calling it being realistic. But you're not realistic. You're stuck. And if you're stuck long enough, you'll do what all cornered men do. You'll either explode or you'll disappear. In the next part, I'm gonna tell you what that explosion looks like, how good men become dangerous in the worst way, and how to stop it before you burn your life down just to feel something. So, the explosion. You've seen it. Maybe you've lived it. Maybe you're one bad week away from it. A good man doesn't wake up and decide, today I'm gonna ruin everything. He doesn't plan it like a villain. He doesn't even want it. It happens the way a dam breaks. First, its hairline cracks. Nobody notices. Then it's a leak you pretend isn't there. Then one day the whole thing collapses and everyone acts surprised. And the funniest part, the saddest part is that people will look at you and say, he changed. No, you didn't change. You finally ran out of space to hold the version of yourself everybody liked. Let's talk about what exploding actually looks like for men like you. It's not always screaming. Sometimes it's silence that gets sharp. A man who used to answer texts stops replying. A man who used to show up for everyone stops showing up. A man who used to apologize for existing suddenly says, whatever, and walks away. That's the quiet explosion. Then there's the ugly one. You snap in the middle of something small, something stupid. Dishes, a late bill, a comment that hits you in the wrong place. The kind of comment your wife doesn't even remember making, but you remember it like a scar. You're not mad about the dishes. You're mad about 10 years of swallowing your own needs like they're poison. And people around you don't understand because they only saw the surface version. The agreeable version. The good guy. So when you finally show them the pressure underneath, they treat it like a betrayal. That's why good men lose. Not because they're weak. Because they spend their lives trying to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding them. Now, there's another way men break. Disappearing. You know what disappearing looks like? You do everything you're supposed to do. You pay. You provide. You fix. You nod. You smile. You go to work. You come home. You eat. You sleep. You repeat. And you die inside so slowly nobody throws a funeral. That's disappearing. And it's more common than exploding because it looks mature. It looks stable. It looks like a man who's got it together. But inside you're just hollow. You're not living. You're maintaining. You're maintaining a marriage that's more like a business contract. You're maintaining friendships that only exist when you're the one initiating. You're maintaining an image of calm while your mind runs like an engine with no oil. And then you wonder why you can't sleep at night. Because your body knows you're lying. Your body knows you're not safe. Not because of danger outside. Because of the danger outside. Because of the danger inside. The danger of a man who's betrayed himself for too long. Now let me drag money back into this, because money is where a lot of men get cornered without admitting it. Here's what you do. You work hard. You do the responsible thing. You take the overtime. You miss the gym, miss the sleep, miss your own damn life. You tell yourself you're doing it for the family, for the future. But the future never arrives. It's always one more paycheck away. And then you realize something that feels like being punched. Your family doesn't want you. They want what you produce. Not always out of cruelty. Sometimes out of habit. Sometimes out of fear. Sometimes because that's the role you trained them to expect. But it still happens, and you resent them for it. Then you hate yourself for resenting them. Congratulations. Now you're in the guilt loop, the good man's favorite prison. You know what breaks men? Not hardship. Unacknowledged resentment. Resentment is poison. You drink while hoping someone else gets sick. And you, the good man, you drink a lot of it. You drink it quietly. You drink it politely. You drink it with a smile. You tell yourself it's fine. Then you wonder why your eyes look dead in the mirror. Now let's talk about loyalty and trust again, because here's the trap. Good men think loyalty means staying no matter what. They think loyalty is endurance, but loyalty isn't staying. Loyalty is choosing over and over with open eyes. If you're staying because you're afraid to be alone, that's not loyalty. That's dependency. If you're staying because you don't want to look like a failure, that's not loyalty. That's ego. If you're staying because you think leaving makes you the bad guy, that's not loyalty. That's fear of judgment. The world trained you to believe only two types of men leave, cowards or villains. That's a lie designed to keep you in place. Sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is walk away without screaming, without proving a point, without setting the place on fire. Just walk. But you don't, because you're addicted to being right in the eyes of people who will never be fair judges. You keep trying to win a trial where the verdict was decided before you entered the room, and then you explode, or you disappear. So how do you stop it? You don't stop it with positivity. You don't stop it by communicating better with people who only listen when you're collapsing. You don't stop it by reading a book and underlining sentences like that's gonna grow your spine. You stop it with one thing: standards, not rules for other people, standards for yourself. A standard is simple. It says, this is what I tolerate, this is what I don't, this is what I don't when it's crossed. And here's where you mess it up. You set boundaries like a suggestion. You say, I don't like when you talk to me that way. Then they do it again. Then you do nothing. Then they learn your boundary isn't a boundary. It's a mood. A real boundary has consequences. Not violence, not drama, not revenge. Consequences, distance, withdrawal of access, withdrawal of benefits, saying no, leaving the room, ending the conversation, changing the plan. And yes, people will call you cold. Good, let them. Because the version of you they liked was the version they could push around. Now, you might be thinking, Trevor, what if I lose everyone? Let me answer that like only I can. If you set healthy boundaries and you lose everyone, you didn't have everyone. You had an audience. You had consumers. You had people who enjoyed you the way they enjoy free air only, noticing its value when it's gone. And you know what's terrifying? After you set standards, your life gets quiet. Not peaceful at first, quiet. Because the parasites leave. The drama stops. The constant demands fade. And then you're alone with the thing you've been avoiding. Yourself. That's why men stay in chaos. Chaos is busy. Chaos is loud. Chaos gives you an excuse not to face the emptiness. But if you can handle that quiet, if you can sit in it without running back to the same old mess, then you start building something real. You start building a life where you don't need permission to exist. And that's when good men stop losing. Not because they become bad, but because they stop being easy. Now, before you get all inspired and do something stupid like quitting your job tomorrow or picking a fight with your wife just to assert dominance, calm down. Discipline, remember? Dangerous in a disciplined way. You don't blow up your life to prove a point. You build your life to protect your sanity. In the next part, I'm going to give you the final piece. The difference between a man who becomes bitter and a man who becomes solid. Because bitterness is what happens when you wake up too late. And solidity, that's what happens when you wake up now. All right. Final stretch. You've heard enough tonight to either hate me, love me, or sit there staring at your screen like I just read your diary. Good? Because the truth is supposed to do that. Truth isn't comfort. Truth is a mirror. And most men avoid mirrors because they don't want to see what they've become. Now let's talk about the fork in the road. The moment every man hits eventually, you either become bitter or you become solid. Bitter men are easy to spot. They're always complaining, always blaming, always making jokes that aren't really jokes. They talk like life is a scam and everyone else is stupid for believing in anything. And here's the tragedy. Bitter men usually started as good men. They tried, they cared, they trusted, they sacrificed, then they got burned. And instead of learning, they built a personality out of the scar. They call it being realistic. But it's just fear wearing sunglasses. A solid man is different. A solid man gets burned and learns the lesson without setting himself on fire. He doesn't become cruel. He becomes clear. Clarity is what separates a man who loses from a man who adapts. So if you want the Trevor version of a life philosophy, here it is. No candles, no chanting, no inspirational piano. Just rules. Not rules to impress people. Rules to keep you from dying inside. Rule 1. Stop trying to be understood by people who don't want to understand you. Listen carefully, some people don't misunderstand you by accident. They misunderstand you on purpose because it gives them power. If they admit they understand you, they'd have to respect you. And respect would mean they can't keep taking. So stop arguing. Stop explaining. Stop presenting evidence like you're in court. You don't need their agreement. You need your own standards. Rule 2. Your boundaries are only real when they cost you something. Everybody loves boundaries in theory. In reality, boundaries mean you might lose access to people. You might lose comfort. You might lose the role you've been playing for years. But if your boundary doesn't change anything, if you keep giving them the same access, the same energy, the same benefits, then your boundary is just a complaint. A boundary isn't a speech. A boundary is an action. It's leaving the room. It's ending the call. It's not showing up. It's saying no and letting silence do the work. And yes, you'll feel guilty. That's normal. Guilt is just the old you trying to survive. Rule 3. Love without respect is just hunger. A lot of you confuse love with attachment. You say you love someone, but what you really mean is you're terrified of being alone. You're terrified of starting over. You're terrified of admitting you spent years building something that doesn't love you back the way you need. So you stay, and you rot politely. Here's a brutal truth. You can't negotiate respect. You can't beg it out of someone. You can't earn it by suffering more. You can't buy it with money or silence. Respect is either there or it isn't. And if it isn't, you don't fix that with effort. You fix that with distance. Rule 4. Stop calling self-betrayal peace. You know what peace is. For most good men, peace is when nobody's mad at you. That's not peace. That's compliance. Real peace is when you can be honest without shaking. When you can say what you mean without rehearsing it 100 times in your head. When you can disappoint people and still sleep. If you can't sleep, you're not at peace. You're just quiet. And quiet is not the same as peace. Rule 5. Being good is not the goal. Being dangerous with control is the goal. You heard me. Not violent, not reckless, not cruel. Dangerous with control. Because a man who is harmless isn't moral. He's just safe to ignore. A controlled, disciplined man has weight. People listen when he speaks because they know he can walk away. They know he won't beg. They know he won't tolerate disrespect just to keep the room warm. And this is where you're going to argue with me, so let's do it. You'll say, Trevor, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be feared. Good. You shouldn't want to be feared, but you should want to be taken seriously. Because when you're not taken seriously, you get used. And when you get used long enough, you either explode or disappear. Now, let me bring it back to the title. Why good men lose. Good men lose when they confuse being good with being convenient. They lose when they keep their mouth shut to avoid conflict. They lose when they keep forgiving people who aren't changing. They lose when they keep paying for love with pain. They lose when they keep negotiating with someone who already decided they don't respect them. And here's the part you won't like, because it puts the responsibility back in your lap where it belongs. Good men lose when they refuse to become the author of their own life. You want to know why you feel stuck? Because you've been living like a supporting character in someone else's story. You're the reliable guy, the stable guy, the helpful guy. But you're not the main character in your own head. You're the employee. and you keep waiting for a boss, your wife, your parents, your friends, society to give you permission to live differently, permission isn't coming. It never comes. So you either take it or you stay in the war. Now, I'm gonna end this the way I like ending things. Cold, honest, and a little rude. If you're listening to me right now and you felt something anger, relief, shame, recognition good, that means you're not dead inside yet. But don't sit there and reflect like reflection is action. Action is action. A boundary, a standard, a choice, even a small one, even one that makes you uncomfortable, because discomfort is the price of becoming solid. Now here's the question. Yeah, I want an answer, not a motivational quote. What's the biggest way you've been betraying yourself lately? Money? Trust? Marriage? Loyalty? Fear? Write it in the comments. And don't try to sound wise. Don't try to impress anyone. Tell the truth. Or keep lying and enjoy your sleepless nights. I'm Trevor Phillips, and I got roads to burn through.